Work has begun to remove all the equipment involved with the dredging of sand offshore onto the 1-mile stretch of beach between Port Royal Plantation's beach house and the Westin Hotel. The beach renourishment project work began just after Christmas, and placing sand on the beach was completed earlier this week. During the next few minutes, we're going to take you to the dredge and show you what it takes to get all that sand from the seafloor onto the shoreline. And here to talk with me about that is Scott Liggett, Director of Public Projects and Facilities for Hilton Head Island. Scott, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Can you give us an idea before we show people what the beach looked like during all of this and the dredge itself? The scope of this project, how much sand was moved from seafloor onto beach, and what was the cost?
Sure, absolutely. The project limits roughly about a mile or so in length, adjacent to Port Royal Plantation. The final design volume of sand placed was 1,118,000 cubic yards. The final expected contract amount is roughly $8.8 million.
And where does that money come from? Is it all town money? Do we get some assistance from the county or state?
In this case, we did get some assistance from the state. The bulk of the cost, though, however, as has been the case with all of our previous projects, is borne by the town through our beach preservation fee. We were successful in receiving a grant of up to $1 million from the state, and we'll square away that money when we visit with the state and compare volumes of place. But they were involved to a small degree in this job.
The choice not to do the work really didn't exist, did it? Because from my understanding, we were losing quite a bit of that shoreline a year, were we not?
We were. The recession rate there, the recent recession rate was about 130 feet per year. And the conundrum that we were in is that failing to act, we thought that that recession could ultimately threaten the private property. There really wasn't the expectation that it would be a self-solving problem, and so we had intervened. Actually, we've been developing the plans for this project and the permitting for a period of years beforehand.
Well, I had a chance to actually go to the beach last Saturday. You're the one that suggested it, Scott. Thanks to you for that, because it was really interesting. And we took a look where Great Lakes Dredge and Dock Company was placing sand, as we mentioned, that location between Port Royal Plantation and the Westin. Dave Horn with the company explained what was taking place. Here we go. We'll take a look.
We have a variety of equipment on the beach. We had 3 D7 dozers, 2 electric, the new kind coming out, a new style from Caterpillar. In addition to putting shore pipe on, they do all the grading work. We have to build containment systems to hold the slurry coming from the dredge into the beach template. So we have to build containment systems to keep the water flowing where we want to. We also have 2 forklifts on site and an excavator to all help with daily operations. All our pipe on this project is a 30-inch inside diameter pipe. We call it a 30-inch dredge when you talk about the kind of ships we have. Right now on the beach, we're widening and lifting up the beach. We're trying to pump it so it's a higher elevation and it doesn't get scoured away like it was existing. As subline gets bad and thins out, we actually scour out the steel as we're pumping on it. We'll take old subline that's on the bottom of the ocean or the river, wherever we're working, to the dredge. We cut it up into 40-foot sections and bring it on the beach. We call it shore pipe, and what we do is, as we come ahead on the beach, as we pump and fill up additional areas, they have to add more pipe to reach the next area. So they'll actually take a piece of pipe and put it on the other one, and a dozer will come up, hit it, connect it, we'll put a piece of steel and weld it in place to keep the pipe together, and we keep moving along the beach like that. We utilize a GPS survey system. It records an elevation and a location on the beach, and what we do is we have, they're called cross-section lines up and down the beach, and we run those profiles every day to chart the progress, what was existing before we came here, how we were when we were working, and what we've done, what we left. And we use it for payment purposes and let the city know that we adhere to the contract specifications. Well, we have what's called a beach slope. There's the main part of the beach that's at a constant height, but then you have a slope that ties down into the existing surf line. Unfortunately, a lot of that is pumped underwater. So the surveyors have to actually get into wetsuits and waders, and they take the equipment down with them and walk out as far as they can at low tide so they can measure the amount of sand that we placed on the beach.
Scott, what's going to prevent all that sand from being washed back into the sea?
Yeah, sure. The beach fill itself is complemented with the construction of a rubble mound groin towards the northern limits of the project, and it's actually through the construction of this groin that we hope to afford some minimum stability to the sand that we place. Certainly the forces that are underway there now are not necessarily expected to be any different in the future, so any sand that we may place theoretically would be threatened by those same forces, but with the groin, we hope to provide some minimum beach condition into the future.
Well, great, Scott. Thanks for the information. When we come back, we're going to actually show people what it's like to board the dredge and show them, too, how the crew and equipment gets all that sand from 3 miles offshore onto the beach. Stay with us. We're back with more on the Lowcountry Report. We're going to take you aboard that dredge that pumped all that sand onto a 1 mile stretch of beach on Hilton Head Island. Scott Liggett joins me from the town of Hilton Head Island. Scott, you arranged that great trip over to the dredge offshore. I want to thank you. It was really fascinating.
Yeah, I was glad you were able to accompany us. It was a great trip. I do need to recognize and thanks Great Lakes Dredge and Dock for hosting us. Specifically Dave Horn, Matt Jack, and Jack Wynn, who served as our tour guides. But it was certainly something well received by everyone, and the town is most appreciative for Great Lakes for doing that.
And I know that you did more than one trip over there, so kudos to them for agreeing to do that. As we mentioned, we had the opportunity to board a boat. I did so with WHHI videographer Jeremy Pope, along with several residents of Port Royal Plantation, and we headed out to the Great Lakes Dredge. Along with me that day, Will Dopp, Marianne Emanuele, and Dale Tall of Port Royal Plantation. Also, Scott Liggett was there, and we got to see what work was being done to get all that sand back onto the beach.
Well, it's the Dredge Alaska. It's one of many dredges in our fleet. This dredge is about 280 foot from bow to stern. It's about 65 feet wide. We have two 20-cylinder EMD engines in there, which gives us about 7,200 horsepower to run our main pump, which is over 90 inches in diameter. We're able to dig with the current set up to a depth of about 60 feet of water, and we're able to pump an enormous amount of material onto the beach every day. We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays and weekends. We do not stop unless the equipment fails us or until the job's over. Well, the dredge is approximately 3 miles from the shore where the pipe lands. We have an additional 2,000 feet of pipe that's behind the dredge, and currently we have about 3,500 feet of pipe on the beach. For a total of almost 4 miles at this moment.
This is the Lieberman's room, and this is the Lieberman. This is the control center of the dredge. This is where all operations are performed. This is where the dredge is controlled, digging. You can see from the screens over there, we keep track of a GPS system within 3 feet, exactly where that cutter head is, what we're doing, production information about the engines, the motors, everything that's going on, our discharges, pressures, and things like that. The Lieberman is in control of the dredge. He's in control of all the winches and all the operating systems. He's also in charge of the radios and communicating with any vessels in the area with the Coast Guard, sending out any kind of warnings or anything like that.
The winches are where we go to port to starboard.
Okay, yep.
As the cutter head turns on the bottom and Big Red sucks the material up and puts it to the beach.
Who came up with the name Big Red?
The crew, many years ago.
How old is the equipment here?
The dredge was built in '59.
But the actual way the dredging operations go is that we have what's called a cutter, approximately 6-7 foot in diameter. And it's an open veined, almost like a drill bit, and we have what's called cutter teeth that we put on the outside. And basically it's just steel picks that come off so that we can better get a slurry going and pump up into the engine. What we'll do is we'll put down the cutter at the required depth, and we actually just swing the dredge from side to side while the cutter turns. It creates a slurry, and the pumps are able to pump that slurry to the beach. There's approximately 64 teeth on this cutter, and we change some of them out every day, a couple of them every day. Actually, from moving through the sand and stuff, it almost works like a sandblaster. We actually scour the steel off these teeth down until they become brittle, we'll be in danger of breaking. When that happens, when we're down for delays or for greasing, we bring the cutter up, and the crew will perform what's called a cutter check. They go out there on a tugboat or on a cutter platform, and they'll actually replace the teeth on the cutter as needed with a little pin system on what's called an adapter.
Those are the swing wires. That swings the dredge back and forth while we're digging on the bottom. Those two right there, that's the cutter motors that actually turn the cutter, and we vary the cutter speed depending on where we are and what we're doing and what we're trying to do. We need the tugboats to do work. We move the dredge, we move the anchors, we move the pipeline. We use it to bring things from the shore and back. It's this is a smaller tug. It's got a shallow draft on it, so we use it mostly to lift anchors where we got the shallow water. And it does a lot of work with the tanks and the pipe in the back. That's what we either call it a stiff leg or an anchor barge. Basically, it's just a high-powered winch system. One of the tugs will tie up next to the barge. They'll take it to where the cam buoys are, where you have anchors. They'll hook it up with the winch, lift it up, and then they pull the anchors where they need them to go, and then set them back down on the bottom. You'll see coming up, we have what's called an underwater pump on the bottom of the ladder. It pulls the material from the bottom up and puts it into the main pump so we can pump it to the beach.
Scott, I think it gives you a little bit of a sense of the scale of what's being done or what was done with this project, but speak to that if you could.
Sure, absolutely. The scale is quite monumental. So many different pieces of equipment, individuals involved on both the water side and the land side to make this happen. Having said all of that, it's always amazing to me that the concept that we're trying to employ is relatively fundamental. This mixture of sand and water being pumped and placed up on the beach is actually a concept that I think children are aware of as they make sandcastles with that mixture of sand and water in their own hands to build sandcastles. Of course, we're taking that several orders of magnitude up to bring this project to bear, but really that's what is at play here.
Well, congratulations. It looks as though the project has been a great success. Final cost, though, you're not going to know what that is for a while, right?
A couple more weeks once the final project surveys are in. There is a process, obviously, that we go through where Great Lakes demonstrates to us the volume of sand that they have placed on the beach, a process we go through then to review that and ultimately pay them per cubic yard for the sand that shows up there. As I'd mentioned earlier, roughly speaking, I think we're expecting about a $8.8 million job when it's all said and done.
Well, it was interesting to me to find out that some of the people that work out on that dredge actually live aboard the dredge. They eat, work, sleep there, and we had a chance to speak with the cook or the chef or the steward, and here's what he had to say about what food means to the crew. Take a listen.
This is one of the things that they actually look forward to 3 times a day is their meals, especially the people that live on board. This is their entertainment. They come and they enjoy their meal and watch a little television and back to bed to do it all again tomorrow.
So about 50 people total work on the dredge day and night.
And how often do the guys go ashore?
They'll go when the people who live on board, they'll go in at least once a week when they do their switch from the day shift to the night shift or vice versa. But we have the crew boat available. If they need to do anything, we'll make a ride for them and get them on shore.
Scott Liggett, again, I want to thank you so much for your time and affording us the opportunity to get an inside look on that project. Thanks so much.
You're quite welcome.
That will do it for this edition of the Lowcountry Report. I'm Allie McNair. We'll see you the next time.